The Sturmgeschütz 3 assault gun was Germany's most produced fully tracked armored fighting vehicle during World War II and second most produced German armored combat vehicle of any type. After the SD, KFZ 251 half-track. It was built on a slightly modified Panzer III chassis, replacing the turret with an armored fixed superstructure mounting a more powerful gun, initially intended as a mobile assault gun for direct fire support for infantry. The Stug 3 was continually modified, and much like the later Jagdpanzer vehicles, was employed as a tank destroyer. The T-34 is a Soviet medium tank introduced in 1940. Its 76.2 mm tank gun was more powerful than its contemporaries, while its 60-degree sloped armor provided good protection against anti-tank weapons. The T-34 had a profound effect on the conflict on the Eastern Front in the Second World War, and had a lasting impact on tank design. After the Germans encountered the tank in 1941 during Operation Barbarossa, German General Paul Ludwig Ewald von Kleist called it the finest tank in the world, and Heinz Guderian affirmed the T-34's vast superiority over German tanks. The M4A3E8 is one of the most mass-produced modifications of the main U.S. armored vehicle of the World War II period. The tank featured the welded hull and 4 GAA carburetor engine. A total of 11,424 vehicles with the improved HVSS suspension were produced by Fisher Tank Arsenal and Detroit Tank Arsenal from June 1942 through March 1945. Nicknamed as the Easy 8, or E8, this tank is a quicker, slightly better armored version of the M4 Sherman. It also has an upgraded 76 mm gun with an improved rate of fire and better accuracy. The Panther tank, officially Panzerkampfwagen V Panther IV Panther, was intended to counter the Soviet T-34 medium tank and to replace the Panzer III and Panzer IV. Nevertheless, it served alongside the Panzer IV and the heavier Tiger I until the end of the war. It is considered one of the best tanks of World War II for its excellent firepower, protection and mobility, although its reliability in early times were less impressive. It was used on the Eastern and Western fronts from mid-1943 to the end of the war in May 1945. It had better gun penetration, was lighter and faster, and could traverse rough terrain better than the Tiger I. The British Comet was essentially an upgraded Cromwell tank. In 1943, it was realized that a new British tank was needed that had a high-velocity gun that could take on and knock out the new Panther and Tiger tanks, but was also fast and had a low profile. The Churchill tank had good armor but was slow and had a weak gun. The Sherman tank was tall. The Cromwell tank was fast and low, but its turret could not take a larger gun. The A-43 Centurion tank was under development, but it would not be ready until 1945. The British Army needed a stopgap tank that could quickly be introduced into production. The answer was to fit a new up-armored turret with a high-velocity 77 mm gun onto late version modified Cromwell chassis. It was called the A-34 Cruiser Tank Comet Mark I Type A-22. The Crusader was one of the fastest and most maneuverable tanks of the North African campaign and was particularly suited to the long, relatively flat terrain. The Crusader tank was one of the most used British cruiser tanks in North Africa during the Second World War. The Crusader was designed to be faster than infantry tanks and were, therefore, more lightly armored, though it had a more powerful engine than its infantry tank counterparts. The Crusader was also one of the fastest tanks in North Africa with a topping speed of 44 km/h while having a mid-armor of 51 mm. The Tiger was a modern tank, with a powerful 88 mm anti-aircraft gun on a Krupp turret and very good armor that in many places exceeded 50 mm. The armor, surprisingly, was not inclined like that of the T-34's opponent, but vertical. The drive system was semi-automatic, including the innovative OLVAR hydraulic gearbox. The suspension consisted of 8 wheels on each side in 2 overlapping rows, which created a significant problem. Mud and stones collected between the wheels, immobilizing the chariot when the mud froze due to the bitter cold of the Eastern Front. Though the Tiger was too complex to build and maintain, it gave the German Army its first armored fighting vehicle that mounted the 8.8 cm KW K-36 gun. 1,347 were built between August 1942 and August 1944. The IS-2 was equipped with a powerful 122mm gun, the D-25T. The D-25T had a 780 to 790 meter per second muzzle velocity and could penetrate 140 millimeters of armor at 500 meters. But, most important, the breech mechanism, although still semi-automatic, was geared to sustain a reduced loading time. The problems of internal glacis armor plate releasing fragments when hit was solved thanks to the experts of the Cree-48 tank builders, which developed a new form of armor plates as well as improved the manufacturing technologies. The other important innovation was an uniformly sloped frontal glacis plate at angle of 60 degrees with 100 millimeters of armor. About 3,854 were produced. The Tiger II is a German heavy tank of the Second World War. The Nazi Germans called the Königstiger and the British termed the Royal Tiger. The Tiger II was the successor to the Tiger I, combining the latter's thick armor with the armor sloping used on the Panther medium tank. The tank weighed almost 70 tons, and was protected by 100 to 185 millimeters of armor to the front. The armor applied to the Tiger II was the heaviest tank armor used during the war. Its maximum thickness on the hull nose and glacis, mantlet, and turret front was 7.28 inches. It was armed with the long-barreled 8.8 cm KWK-43L-71 anti-tank cannon. The chassis was also the basis for the Jagdtiger turretless Jagdpanzer anti-tank vehicle, though its reliability and mobility were less impressive. Most people forget about France when talking about tanks from WW2. However, in 1939 to 1940, the French actually had some of the world's best tanks. Perhaps somewhat surprisingly, the Char B1 was actually better than anything that the Germans then had in service at that time. Among the most powerfully armed and armored tanks of its day, the type was very effective in direct confrontations with German armor in 1940 during the Battle of France. The Char B1 bis was an upgraded variant with thicker armor at 60 mm maximum and an APX-4 turret with a longer-barreled 47 mm SAW-35 gun to give the tank a real anti-tank capacity. The B1 bis is equipped with a 47 mm gun, 2 machine guns, and a heavy 75 mm gun.